Yeah, I like to think that maybe Luke Howard would be a member of the Cloud. Well, of course he would be a member of the Cloud Appreciation Society. He would be, he should be a posthumous member, shouldn't he? Have we got any members of the society here today? Hello. Right, good, a nice little sprinkling. So I guess just say quickly, for those of you who don't know what the hell we're talking about, Cloud Appreciation Society 18 years ago started this, and it started a talk. Somebody asked me to do a talk who was starting a literary festival in Cornwall. She said, "You're always going on about clouds, give us a talk about clouds." And this was 20 years ago or something. I said, "Well, I haven't written any books or anything." "What do you mean?" She said, "We're desperate for speakers. We don't care what's going on. Just give us a talk about clouds." And I thought, how do I get people to come along? Because what if it's pouring with rain? This outdoor festival in Cornwall, maybe people are going to be bemoaning clouds. So I thought I'll give it an unusual name, the talk. I called it the inaugural lecture of the Cloud Appreciation Society, because it sounded like a weird thing. I thought I'd go along to talk called that. And that's how it started, because everyone came up to me afterwards and said, "How do I join?" As simple as that, really. And so we've got members in 120 countries around the world, and they all are united in the belief that clouds aren't something to moan about, which is something we seem to do quite a lot here in the UK, because we get a lot of them. But they are, in fact, when you stop and think about it, they're one of the most evocative and dynamic and poetic parts of nature, the sky. I mean, it's the most visible part of the weather, but it is also the most metaphorically rich part of the weather. And we've got about 59,000 members have joined the society so far around the world, and they all send in photographs. So these pictures I'm showing you today are all images sent in by members from around the world. And really what I wanted to do here is to try and mix a little bit of that sense of wonder. So maybe a combination of what Richard and Helen have been talking about already. Talk a little bit about the different types of clouds, but also talk about the effects they have on us and the socio aspect of this and how we feel about the sky. But first, we're all going to just understand the science, and so I've got this 1-minute video, all right, that's going to get us all up to speed if we have sound. We're not sure whether we're going to have sound or not, so let's just see how that. Okay. Where's it coming from? Can you hear it?
It's not coming from the black hole.
Wait a sec, that's not coming out the main speaker, but I think I can do that so that people at the back can hear. I think I can do that with a little setting, a little jiggery-pokery of my setting. It should be just, I can select through here, I think. We can try that in a minute. Here we go, sound, and we're going to go Optima display port. Right, that's what I'm going to use as a sound. I'm going to try that one again. That sounded right, didn't it? Right. So there we were.
Welcome to the world of clouds. Before you start collecting them, let's explain what clouds are and how they get up in the sky. It all begins down on Earth. As water evaporates from oceans, rivers and lakes, its molecules, which are far too small to see, lift up off the surface. When the air cools enough, they start to stick together into droplets or ice crystals. Millions of these, suspended in the air, appear as a cloud. The low clouds, like cumulus, are made of droplets. The high ones, like cirrus, are made of ice crystals. No two clouds are ever alike, but they share characteristics. Sometimes they're in translucent streaks, sometimes clumps or stacks, and sometimes layers. As the particles of a cloud scatter the sunlight, they can cause cause a whole range of different optical phenomena to appear. When a cloud grows tall, its base appears dark, and the droplets in its upper reaches can start to freeze. Soon they grow large enough to form. If the air below is warm enough, they melt as they descend, land as raindrops, and the whole cycle begins again. Happy cloud spotting!
Deafening, absolutely deafening. I'm sorry, I couldn't turn the volume down on my machine, so I'm afraid that we're stuck with that. All right, so that's kind of a little run through. If you could get over the loudness of it, of how the clouds work, and this is going to be an ascent through the atmosphere, from the low clouds up to the higher clouds, as we introduce a few of them. And we're going to start, therefore, with the lowest cloud, the one that we walk within, which is fog, of course. This is the type that Luke Howard named stratus, from the Latin for a blanket or a layer. And you can see in this set of the 10 main cloud types that stratus is down there right at the base. So it can be a ground level, or it can be just a bit above the ground level, but it's a layer and it's low. But it's not always down on the ground, as I say. Sometimes it is a little bit elevated, and it might be just clipping the top of hills. It could be the sky, that skyscrapers scrape a low layer of cloud. And I was interested when I noticed a while back that it's a stratus cloud, all right, which is a bit of a boring cloud when you're beneath it, but rather a magical cloud when you're looking down onto it, perhaps from a mountainside. It's the stratus that featured in what I think is the first realistic depiction of clouds in art. And this is the Chinese tradition of ink and scroll paintings. So this is from the 10th century, Dongguan. And the art traditions around that time had a lot of fascination between mountains and clouds, and the interplay between the two. There's always this constant love affair between mountains and clouds, because they affect each other in so many ways. Usually the mountains help the clouds to form, but the clouds then have this effect on the appearance of the mountains, which is what I think these early Chinese artists were fascinated by. So you've got the fog down in the valleys there. Look how realistic that is. It really looks like, this was long before anyone was doing realistic art of the sky and of clouds in Western art. And so we've got them down in the valley there, the valley fog. But you've also got patches up around the higher sort of slopes of the mountains, which I think are rather beautiful. And those would be also a form of stratus, but like a broken form, fractus, like a fragment of a layer. And this is maybe a bit more what it would look like in reality, stratus, fractus, on the slopes of hills or mountains. When I saw this one, I was rather kind of amazed, because this is Cloudy Mountains, all right, 11:30, a little bit later on, Mihuren, and we've got the same deal. We've got foggy kind of valleys there. Zoom in a bit though, and we've got like is that a kind of cumulusy one there going on? Don't know. Could be, or maybe it's something on the scroll. I don't know, but could be a cumulusy type one. What about over there? What's that going on up there? Just make it out. I could increase the contrast. You know what that looks like to me? A little bit like the cloud we were looking at, we mentioned before, the fluctus cloud. This is a cloud feature, fluctus, the one that curls over in breaking waves, and it's got, as Richard was saying, Kelvin Helmholtz was its sort of name before it was given a Latin one recently. Beautiful breaking wave appearance here over some fog. you've got fog sitting in a valley and a gentle breeze drifting over the top. It can start to pick up some undulations on the top of that fog and start to curl them over. And it happens higher in the sky as well. Here's over some mountains, over Maui in Hawaii, and the tops of this cloud over the mountains is curling over in these vortices. Again here, we've got over mountains. So the shearing wind is a thing here. So the wind below where the cloud is, or beneath the cloud, is significantly slower than the wind above. You've got this real difference of wind speed with height or with altitude. And that difference is what causes a bit like sort of sliding, like a carpet ruffled as you slide it along the floor, it sort of ruffles. And if the difference in those speeds is just right, the tops curl over. They get curled over only very briefly, lasts for a minute or a couple of minutes maybe, before it starts breaking up and not looking anywhere near as beautiful as this. And mountains can be just the thing you need because the air's flowing along, and a mountain, all that terrain slows down the lower wind. It just kind of, there's a turbulence, it all gets slowed down, so you get this real difference in speed of winds, this shearing effect. So I think, they were not only brilliant at depicting, realistic clouds, but maybe spotting some rare and, maybe I'm making this up, I don't know, I've never spoken to a art historian about it, but it just struck me that that's an example of a fluctus, anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Right, who's been paying attention? Who can tell me with their hand up in the air which cloud this one is?
Simpsons.
No, shouting out. Put your hand up. Come on, anyone idea? Only idea is it's a basic one. So shy. Think of a yeah.
Well, I'm going to go for a nimbus.
Nimbus? No. Oh. No, nice try, but I'm sorry, it's not a nimbus. Come on, what's the name of a cloud? Put your hand up.
Cumulus.
No, maybe you didn't put your hand up. Did you put your hand up? Absolutely right. It is indeed a cumulus cloud, and you're going to get a cloud selector as a prize. If you'd known there were prizes, you would have paid a bit more attention. Cloud selector. This is before you had apps, guys. No Wi-Fi or batteries required to use this cloud identification device. You turn the wheel and it shows you different types, 10 main types on one side and then the other ones on the other side. The cumulus cloud, right, it's the basic one. Close your eyes, think of a cloud, and it's probably going to be the cumulus that comes to mind. And so we do, here it is. Down there, another low cloud in the lower kind of part of things, and as Richard said, it comes from the Latin something solid or a heap, and they are the most solid-looking of the clouds. You see them on a sunny day, and the little ones like this, they look like kind of rocks up in the sky. In fact, the name cloud comes from the early English word clwyd. That's right, isn't it? Which means a boulder or a rock. So there's a lot of combination. You look up and those look really solid. I know they're floating like rockstone do, but they still look very solid. And not only are they these generic clouds, the ones you sort of think of as the basic ones, they're also the ones you feel most fondly about it, I think. And it's because they form on a sunny day, but it's also because you see shapes in them. We all like a cumulus cloud. No one's ever had anything bad to say about a lovely white fluffy cumulus. So when you look up in the sky and you see a shape of something in the sky, maybe an animal, it's usually a cumulus that's involved, because they've got these crisp edges, well defined crisp edges, and there's solidity to them. So, goldfish in the sky, probably going to be a cumulus. Someone wearing a kind of Easter bonnet is going to be a cumulus. A rabbit on the roof, all right, it's a cumulus. Break dancer, cumulus. Abominable snowman going to rob a bank, it's a cumulus again. And they come into all sorts of forms, like an elephant. We've got an elephant over Yosemite National Park, elephant over Thailand as well, elephant over California. And we've got an elephant on his hind leg. And we've got a pink elephant. I don't know why there's so many elephants. We get a lot of elephants sent in, and it seems to be the most common animal spotted in the sky. I could say that we've had so many sent in over the years. That is my observation. It might be something to do with the way they form. So how do they form cumulus clouds? A little bit like what's happening in a lava lamp. It's convection that is at the heart of the way cumulus clouds form. And the reason for that, this kind of lava lamp, is because you can compare it to what's happening in the atmosphere. There's a lamp, it's got the bulb in the bottom. We're going to have a low energy bulb because it's going to be producing some heat. Because the heat is the important part for making this movement happen. You've got your bulb in there, and in here you've got a mixture of water and wax. And the wax is chosen to be just a bit denser than the water at room temperature. Very carefully chosen. So at room temperature it sits down the bottom. Warm it up a bit with the bulb, and it starts to warm up and expand, and now it's suddenly just a bit lighter, a little bit less dense than the water. It starts to float up until it cools and comes back down. Same thing outside on a sunny day. Here you've got your atmosphere, here you've got your sun, but it's not the sun that's really acting like the bulb. It's the fact the sun warms the ground up, and the ground acts like the bulb. And crucially, one bit of ground, like there's a bit of woodland over here, that's not going to heat things up. The air in contact won't heat it up as fast or as efficiently as this bit of ploughed field or a car park or whatever, or an urban heat island. It's not going to heat up the air as efficiently over there as over here. And so this starts to become, expand, rising up, and it rises up in this column we call a thermal. And the thermal is central to the formation of a cumulus cloud. As it rises, it expands. Any gas that expands cools. As it cools, droplets appear. And so if the conditions are right, the moisture that's in that rising column of air can form into the droplets that we see as a cloud. So as you saw in that video, low clouds are droplets, high clouds, ice crystals. And the magic of clouds is their ability to appear and disappear. Because water is unique, it's the only thing that can change between solid, liquid and gas within the normal temperatures of our planet. It is the only substance on our planet that's in all three states naturally. Nothing else is. No three states, other alternatives. So that's the dance between appearance and disappearance, because one of those states, gas, is invisible, and the other two, water and ice, liquid water and solid ice, are visible as clouds. Going up a little bit then. Anyone, now that you're a bit more motivated, bit more motivated, anyone going to hazard a guess? Alto cumulus. Didn't take you long, that's absolutely right. Alto cumulus. What are you going to get? You will get our cloud spotting chart poster for the wall. So there you've got your 10 main types. And then look at all these options. Look at all these varieties you could be out looking for. And you also have right next to it the your kind of geeky side panel. Tick them off as you watch them. Round of applause for all right, so yes, that was alto cumulus. So yeah, there we have stratus cumulus, alto cumulus. We've got two in the middle here. There's alto stratus. So that's like the higher layer. You know, just as Richard was saying, these mid-level ones, we now use the term alto at the start. So we've got the stratus, the layer one. Well, there's a mid-level version of that. And the cumulus, the low one, there's kind of a mid-level one of that. It's a little bit different though, isn't it? Because rather than those individual, rather separate clouds, or doing their own thing, this is much more, typically, this is much more of a kind of pattern of clumps. These are all called cloudlets, rather sweetly. So we've got this layer of cloudlets that are all in this, you know, array, this pattern across the sky. Very regular pattern. They're smaller as well, aren't they? They look smaller than the cumulus. That's actually just as much as anything because they're further away. They're higher up. Go up in an aircraft like Georgia O'Keeffe when she did her paintings in the 60s of clouds from the window of aeroplanes and the sort of, the glamour of international air travel in the 60s. Up there, they're pretty similar to the size of the cumulus that we see down near us here. It's just they're further away. So further away, they look smaller. But the regularity, what's that about? Why are they so even? Just like perfectly placed. I wanted to demonstrate that when I did this sort of live Skype call with the Weather Channel in the US. We used to do it once a month. The Cloud of the Month we've got on the Cloud Appreciation Society, of course. And they would check in and find out what the cloud of the month was, and I'd talk about it. And I thought, well, I'll do a demonstration one time, just using stuff you can find in your kitchen to show why they're so regular. And here is that. Oh, wait a sec.
Point of the heat is on in the sound.
I'm going to just see if I can turn this volume down. Who found that painful last time? Absolutely. I'm going to have to do something, because I can't control the volume in a normal way. I was feeling your pain, but there was something I could do about it. So here we go. I'm going to go here, and I think I can go here, and I think I can bring this volume down to about there. Let's see if that's any better.
California, the heat is on in the southwest.
Santiago. Beautiful weather there always. Well, time now to show off the cloud of the month, or in this case, maybe we should say cloudlets.
Yeah, in fact, these cloudlets look like sheets of fleecy clumps here. They make up the altocumulus cloud.
There you go. And for more on the cloud of the month, we want to bring in Gavin Pretor-Pinney, founder of the Cloud Appreciation Society. Gavin, good to see you, joining us from Somerset, England.
That's right. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Paul.
Well, tell us about the altocumulus cloud. Of course, they look like they were almost deliberately laid out in a cool pattern. Explain that.
Yeah, well, that's what's so striking about these are beautiful clouds, all right? It's what's so striking about them is they have this layer. When they appear like this, it's a very regular layer spreading over a large area. Lots of clumps called cloudlets with gaps in between.
Here you have a demonstration for us.
I sure do. I'm going to show you. It's a kitchen demo. You know I like my kitchen demos here in the kitchen. So it involves a one of these panini kind of toasters. You know these, right? And basically, this is going to represent what happens to the air. All right, I've got some oil here. This is sunflower oil, and I've mixed into it some powder, mica powder, M-I-C-A. You can get it online. It's just a sort of sparkly powder that people use for crafts and stuff like that. And it helps us show the movement of the oil. And that's important because the way the oil moves is going to be the way the air moves up in the sky. Now I'm going to turn this sandwich toaster on and it's going to start to gently heat the oil below. And you will see the way that the oil rises is going to be in little cells. They're called convection cells as it begins to warm up. These cells are where the oil rises up and the cool oil above sinks down. Can you see them beginning to appear
Yes,
there?
yes.
So these are the same. You see the way it matches the cloud formation with the lots of the little clumps of cloud? Because the same thing is happening up in the sky. You get warmer air below the cloud layer, cooler air above the cloud layer. The air that wants to rise up, it rises up in pockets with the cooler air coming down in between. And so this oil, what's happening with the oil here in the sandwich toaster, it mirrors what's happening up in the sky.
Gavin, that was so cool. For a while there, we had the side-by-side of your experiment along with the actual altocumulus cloud. It looks
It's weird, they look the same, don't they?
It is fantastic.
cool.
Great job, great demonstration. That's Gavin Pretor-Pinney from the Cloud Appreciation Society. And it's all because our atmosphere, like a panini toaster, it's heated from below. So it causes these convection cells, and it's a beautiful demonstration of what goes on. It's amazing.
Really is. We appreciate Gavin so much across the pond there in England. Coming up here on week.
So they also, that could have gone terribly wrong. That could have gone wrong, I do admit. We've been showing kind of the main cloud type, sometimes with names after it. All right, and this taxonomy system has developed over the decades and centuries from having one of the 10 main cloud types. You can add, as Richard was saying, species and varieties. And one of them, for altocumulus, is lenticularis, is when it looks like a UFO. It's named after the Latin for a lentil, a little lens, a small lens. what the Romans used to describe lentils. No one could think of what the Latin for a UFO or a flying saucer was. Really, it would have been the better name. But these are striking and dramatic cloud formations that hover in the wind, downwind of mountains. And again, just like noticing clouds in art is a bit of a thing, is a sort of hobby of mine. When I was living in Italy at one point, many years ago, I went into the basilica in Arezzo and saw these frescoes by the Renaissance painter Piero della Francesca. And I went, wait a minute, what's that? We've got lenticularis clouds up in the sky. He did them in all the frescoes. In fact, he did it in a lot of his paintings generally. He was a big fan of lenticularis clouds, the UFO clouds, and I wonder why, but I think maybe one reason could be that he grew up at the base of these mountains in Italy, the Apennine Mountains, and he maybe saw them over the mountains, because these form downwind of mountains, these clouds. Here's how it works. This is the stream of air, the flow of air, and when it hits the huge obstacle that is a mountain, some of it's going to go around and blah, 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 but a bunch of it might go over it. And when we're in atmospherically stable conditions, not stormy, atmospherically stable, kind of maybe high pressure, this air coming up like that, once it's beyond that obstacle, it comes back down again. A little bit like on the surface of the water when the water's in a stream's flowing over a boulder. Like this, up and then down again. And in fact, you can go up and down, and you get a standing wave. So it's all flowing, but the position of this invisible crest of air is fixed, all right, relative to the mountain. And that is where the lenticularis cloud can form, because it cools as it rises, and the air cools, the air flows through, the droplets appear, and at the back they disappear again, and the cloud stays in the same place. But it's all flowing through, just like the way just downstream of the boulder, the wave shape will stay in place, but the water's flowing. They can look like these kind of amazing skyscrapers, one stacked above the other. Pile d'assiette, a stack of plates, is a French term used when they're stacked up like this, and they can also extend out into more like lozenge shapes when you've got a whole mountain range that's causing these flows of air, all rising and dipping, all invisible flows. The air is, our atmosphere is an ocean of, it's an ocean of gases. And, as Richard and I think Helen were both saying, there's many connections between the ocean of air and the oceans of water, and waves forming in them is one example of that. It's your opportunity again, guys. Hands up. Down at the back there.
It's the cirrus.
It is indeed the cirrus cloud. Absolutely right. You are going to get our Cloud Collector's Handbook, signed by the author. So many congratulations, you can pass that back. Well done. The cirrus was another of, another one of Luke Howard's terms. There's the original ones at the start. Cirrus named after, as Richard said, named after a lock or a curl of hair. Cirrus. They're the most painterly. I mean, it's either hair or it's brush strokes across the blue. They feel like the most fluid and free. There's something free about cirrus clouds. So high. There's nothing oppressive about these ones. And if they're locks of hair, sometimes those locks can be teased out into really straight, orderly hairstyles by the high winds up at cruising altitude. When you call them fibrous, like long streaks of cirrus cloud. But sometimes when the winds at different altitudes up there are much more varied and confused, you would get the cirrus intortus cloud, which is a twisted, different style of hair. More curly hair, or twisted kind of appearance to it, the cirrus intortus cloud. And then sometimes uncinus, meaning Latin for hook. So sometimes these have hooks at the beginnings, at one end of them. This is one of the clouds that Helen was mentioning with the forecasting of the weather in store. Cirrus and Uranus are the good ones to look out for if you want a bit to sort of show off to your friends about how we've got a weather front coming. Because if these thicken in the sky, it is a good indication of an early signal of a weather front coming. You would think when you look at this that the wind's kind of blowing like that. You know, it sort of like catches the bottom of them and blows that way. Actually, it's not like that at all. The wind is blowing this way. But the thing is, these are ice crystals in these high clouds, and they're falling. And as they fall into slower winds. So the whole lot's going along, but the lower winds are slower, and so the ice crystals trail behind as they fall. So it's that same shearing thing, difference in wind speeds with altitude, and this up high in the atmosphere is a kind of thing that can happen out ahead of weather fronts. So if you see those across the sky and they're thickening and they're persisting, it could be the arrival of a warm front. And this was the favourite cloud, these high clouds, the favourite ones of Edward Hopper, ground swell, this one here. I think you might call these jet stream cirrus, I don't know, but I mean they're sort of in a streak across the sky, and they've got this sort of repeated effect at the side there, which would happen between shearing winds again, but maybe that's jet stream cirrus, I don't know. But anyway, I do know that Edward Hopper liked the high cirrus clouds. And yeah, so we've got 10 of them. I'm not going to go through them all at all, but I do want to talk about this baby here. All right. Come on, guys, hands up. Cumulonimbus, absolutely right. That's very well done. Cumulonimbus. You are sitting there nervously awaiting to hear your prize, aren't you? Is it going to be any good or not? You will be getting the cloud calendar for 2023. Yeah, the 2023 cloud calendar, 10 minutes. Okay, great, thank you. So, this is the cumulonimbus cloud. It is the royalty of clouds, the mighty beast of the atmosphere. It is the expression of the power that drives our atmosphere, reaches up high into the sky. As Richard said, it's the tallest, the one that gives us the term cloud 9. And it spreads out up at the top there in this majestic kind of mushroom-like appearance, or sometimes described like a blacksmith's anvil, because it actually extends one way more than the other. Side on it looks symmetrical, front on it looks symmetrical, side on it looks kind of, it looks more like this actually, side on, extending out one way, that's what they say an anvil. And this spreads out like this because it reaches the part of our atmosphere that's like an invisible lid, the top of the troposphere. The top of the part where weather happens is called the tropopause. The temperature profile changes and it acts like a lid. Clouds can't easily climb up through it or grow up through it, so underneath it they can only spread out. They might punch up a little bit if there's a really strong storm and come back down again, but they basically have to spread outwards. And the cumulonimbus cloud growing higher and higher in the sky, this is like the royalty of the cloud world, or maybe the sort of superstar of the cloud world, the queen of clouds or the king of clouds. And like all sort of major characters, it has an entourage of other clouds that form in its vicinity, like the Arcus, this long, low curve of cloud that forms out ahead of the where the showers are happening. The Arcus is like this, sometimes previously known as a shelf cloud, Arcus from the arch, and it's where the showers are going down there. The Arcus is like this warning that it's about to hit you, because all that air dragged down by the precipitation, all that heavy precipitation in the middle of this storm cloud, lightning, thunder cloud, perhaps hail cloud, all that drags air down with it, all right, in the middle. And that air has also got lots of evaporating moisture, and it's cold air, and it comes down and it hits the ground and it sprays outwards. Because although the moisture, the precipitation hits the ground and stays there, the air just has to splay outwards, and it comes out ahead of the storm and it burrows beneath the warm, moist air near the ground, lifting it up and causing this ridge of cloud. You also have the mama cloud features, which to the rear of a large cumulonimbus, on the underside of the anvil, the mama clouds are very dramatic when the sun is low in the sky and hitting them at an oblique angle. But I want to make sure that we just have a talk a little bit, as Richard was talking about, hinting at. This isn't a fixed thing, all right? We're not saying this is all something from the past, the naming of clouds. It is something that there's a still ongoing dialogue about the classification of clouds, and that started, just as Richard was saying, for us, when we spotted a photograph. Someone was sent in to us from Cedar Rapids in Iowa in the US, and this member sent in this cloud of this kind of wild sky, kind of turbulent sky, and I went, that's a kind of weird, that's a kind of dramatic cloud. I'm not quite sure what to call it, to be honest. It's sort of wavy, but there is a term for wavy clouds, undulatus, but it doesn't quite fit with that. And then didn't think too much more. Then another one came in not long after, also probably from the same event, Cedar Rapids. I thought, oh, there's that weird sort of churny, turbulent sky. Then there's another one coming from Wisconsin, maybe 6 months later, totally different thing. I was like, ah. But there's another of those really dramatic. It looks like kind of sort of waves, but they're not in any order. Sometimes they're a bit bumpy. Let's say we've got one from Tasmania in Australia, and quite sort of difference in brightness, you know, where it's thinner and the light could shine through, or where it's thicker. And then sometimes you'd notice they would actually have these sort of peaks to them. If you see down there, there's like sort of two kind of meringue peaks, upside down meringue peaks. And I was going, wow, these are really distinctive clouds. There's another one of them, and I still don't know what to call them. This is over a period of a few years, actually. Each time another one would come in, I'd go, "It's that blooming cloud again. What am I going to say? I don't know what it is." And then I thought, well, maybe we do need a new name. How do you go about braided proposing? And it was that braided. Plaited. Yeah, they do actually have a braid. There's a more plaited cloud that would better get that name. I can show it to you later if you want. But I mean, I thought, well, how do you go about naming a cloud? We've all asked ourselves that question, haven't we? How do you go about naming a cloud? And I thought, I'll go to the Royal Meteorological Society, I'll ask them, and they said, I called them up, I said, I've got a new cloud for you. And they went, yeah, right. I'm sure you've got a new cloud. Let's have a look at your cloud then. And I thought, if I get some pictures, go along and see them. I've got to have a Latin name though. You can't turn up without, I can't say it looks a bit like you're under the water and it's sort of stormy. Maybe you're snorkeling. I've got to have a Latin name, and they wouldn't take me seriously. So I called up my cousin, who teaches Latin at school. I said, Philip, give me some Latin. What would it be? What Latin can I use for a sky that looks like a really churny, turbulent sea in a stormy conditions? And Philip said, glacialis, yes. I said, that's never going to catch on much too long. No way. And he said, don't worry, it's a Virgil quote. The waves were roughened by the icy winter's northern gales. Roughened, the verb aspero, do something with that. And so aspero. And then, this ended up being named the Asperitas cloud. That was a sort of proposed name, and as we've been hearing already, it's the World Meteorological Organization. They're the people who matter when it comes to the naming of clouds. They're the people who published that book, the International Cloud Atlas. But they don't do anything in a hurry. So if you want your cloud to be named, don't hold your breath. That's what everyone told me. So I was like, fine, fair enough, don't hold my breath. But funnily enough, it was a good story that the newspapers and the media loved, and they kept on wanting to write about the story. Because it felt like, like David and Goliath, like one guy with this weird societies up against the World Meteorological Organization. Are they going to allow his new cloud? It's got amazing pictures. It's a story, well, who would not want to run that story? So they kept on doing it, and they kept on calling up the World Meteorological Organization and saying, is it going to be made an official cloud? And they kept on saying, no, it's not. We don't do anything. We don't, it takes a long time. It's a big deal to publish a new edition of the International Cloud Atlas. We only just published one in 1974. You get all this committee of people together. No, we don't want to change, but they kept on hassling, and eventually they gave in. Eventually, in 2017, World Meteorological Day, they got me to go to Geneva, looking a bit nervous, as you can tell. And that was the day when it came out, and it was 1951, the first time they'd accepted a kind of a whole new idea. Like, as Richard said, there were Latin terms for clouds that had colloquial or English names added, but the first kind of new one was this. And it's not quite finished there. I know we're going to end now. It's not quite finished there either. The one that's on the front of your cloud calendar. What does that look like? I mean, eyebrows make what came to our mind. Supercilium is the Latin for an eyebrow. And this is, I know, we see these clouds every now and then. They don't have a name. And actually, rather interesting, like Helen, you were talking about, that rotor and the turbulence downwind of abrupt mountain peaks seems to be where these sort of eyebrow effects, and it's a little bit similar to this cloud called lacanosis, which is holes, but here it's kind of crests, and they often form downwind of these mountain peaks that are particularly sort of abrupt, and the wind is really strong. So if you're a pilot and you're flying through that area and you see one of these, that rotor, which is hard to forecast as a weather forecaster for aviation, you might say, well, you know, when you see these eyebrow clouds, the supercilium clouds, as they might now be known, where you see these, that's going to be an indication that there's this kind of tumbling of the air, this turbulent effect, not that smooth rising and dipping, but this churning wave effect, like a breaking wave on the shore rather than a wave on the surface of the stream. So yeah, that is why we're